This video will help you complete number 5 in your Chapter 9 assignments or exercise 9.03a. In this problem, we're going to be calculating the taxable earnings for unemployment and Social Security. Then we will total the taxable earnings and apply the appropriate tax rates. First, we'll start out with the unemployment compensation, the taxable portion. Okay, so we know that for Futa and Suta in this problem, that the maximum earnings that an employer is taxed on is $7,000. So let's look at Stephanie. She has already earned $6,600. So she only has $400 of earnings left before she hits the $7,000 maximum. So if you know that when you add the current pay to the cumulative pay before current earnings, you're going to go over the limit, you can take the limit and subtract the cumulative pay and find your taxable unemployment. So in this case, 7,000 minus 6,600 is 400. Okay, and then the current pay there was $11.90. We'll go ahead and put that in. All right, we're going to have the same situation on Emily. If we add $6,150 and $1,070, we're going to exceed the $7,000 limit. So we need to figure out how far we need to go before the $6,150 hits $7,000. So how much in earnings are there between $6,150 and $7,000? So that's $850. So only $850 of the current gross pay is going to be taxable for unemployment. Okay, now let's look at Stephen. Stephen has already exceeded that limit. So since he exceeded the $7,000 limit long ago, none of his current pay is going to be taxed for unemployment. Okay, Robin is the same. He's already exceeded. Hannah has already exceeded. And Zoo has already exceeded. So we'll just go and put zeros all the way down in the unemployment column. And then we will copy the current earnings in. We're going to need that to calculate the Medicare tax. All right, now let's work on Social Security. The Social Security limit is $28,400. Okay, so if we look at Stephanie and add the $11.90, we're nowhere near the maximum earnings. So for Social Security, the full $11.90 is going to be taxed. For Emily, she's in the same situation as Stephanie. If we add her cumulative pay and her current gross pay, will not exceed the $28,400 Social Security limit. So she will be fully taxed, or her employer will be fully taxed on her earnings. Stephen is at $55,200. If we add his gross pay, he is going, or his employer will be fully taxed on his current earnings. Robin is the same. Her earnings will not exceed the Social Security earnings limit. Hannah is the same. And then on Zoo, we're going to have to look a little bit closer. If we take $126,530 and add $28.50, we're at $129,380. So we have exceeded the earnings limit. So what we need to find out is how far we need to go before we exceed. We don't care how much has exceeded because that's not taxable. We need to know how much is between $126,530 and $128,400. So I'm going to do the math on my calculator. $128,400 less $126,530 is $1,870. So only $1,870 of the $2,850 will be taxable. So now I'm going to add up all my columns. The unemployment comes up to $1,250. And Social Security is $10,850, and the current earnings is $11,830. Now that we have our totals, we can apply our tax rates. So Social Security, the taxable earnings are $10,850, and our Social Security rate is 6.2%. So the Social Security tax is $672.70. Medicare tax is 1.45%, and it doesn't have any type of earnings limit, so we're going to apply the 1.45% to $11,830, and that gives us $171.54. Now the Futa tax is 0.6%. And the way we get the 0.6% is the normal tax is 6%, but since the company pays into a state-funded unemployment system, they get a 5.4% reduction. So if you take 6% and deduct 5.4%, your Futa rate is 0.6%. So we'll do $1,250 times 0.6%, and if you don't have the percent sign on your calculator, that's 0.006. Okay, that will give us $750. Now the SUTA rate is going to vary by the state you're in, and in this case it's 5.4%. It's not necessarily always the same as the Futa credit, but in this case it is. So the 5.4% times the $1,250 is $67.50. So now we'll add up our four taxes, and we'll get $919.24. Okay, so now that we know our taxes for our employer, we can complete our journal entry. So the employer payroll tax journal entry just simply credits the four taxes that are paid by the employer, and that's Social Security, Medicare, Futa, and SUTA, and then the top number is the debit for the total. So I'm going to debit payroll tax expense, okay, and it is debited to an expense account because this is coming out of the employer's pocket. This was not withheld from the employee, this is paid directly from the employer. So then we will record the Social Security tax payable as a credit for $672.70, Medicare tax payable for $171.54, and then Futa tax payable for $67.50, and SUTA tax payable, sorry, Futa was $750. And then SUTA tax payable was $67.50. Okay, So a little bit more about the Futa and the Suta tax. The Futa tax is really, really small, and because it's just like an administrative oversight for the Suta tax programs in all the states. So if a company pays into the Suta program, their Futa tax will be very, very low. And then you probably already know that the employer has to match dollar for dollar what the employee paid in Social Security tax and Medicare tax. I hope this helps.